What I'm going to do now is introduce our speaker. His name is Rob Muise. He's going to have a lot of the backstory of where we are with Prop 3. We happen to be working alongside him. We're a pregnancy center, but we're one of the 16 plaintiffs that are trying to get Prop 3 reversed. And praise God we have Rob Muise at our side, and he's going to represent and tell us more about the program and what's happening on the law side, the legal side. So welcome, Rob.
Thank you. Really, it's an honor and a privilege to be here. You know, about a year ago, it might have been even longer than a year ago, I got a call from Lee, and it was kind of a strange call. He said, I got a question for you. He said, do you believe in free speech? And I was like, well, I'm a constitutional lawyer. I've been doing this for 25 years. I do First Amendment cases. I said, of course I believe in free speech. He said, how would you like to give one? So here I am today. It's a little bit of my background. My wife and I have been blessed with 12 children. And as I like to say, all of them are boys except for 10. So the motto of my home is, blessed are you among women. I figure if they ever need an expert to testify on women in a court of law, that'd be me. And my answer would be, they're a mystery. And my wife was supposed to be here with us tonight. We had this on our calendar for a year, March 7th. And lo and behold, my daughter, Sarah, was being induced today. And so she had a baby boy. Yeah, Jeremy Patrick was born about 3 p.m. today, in between the luncheon and now. So my wife was home with this is my daughter Sarah's 10th child, and it's our 20th grandchild. So, and we've got 2 more grandchildren on the way this year, and I got 3 more daughters getting married this year. So it's going to be a banner year. You know, with us, we never found out the sex of our babies. I always like, why did you want to do that? It's one of the great surprises of the world, is finding the baby. So our first 9 were girls. I don't know if we have any math guys here. What's the P factor on that? You know, trying to figure that one out. So all 9 were girls, and then it was interesting because so when number 10 came along, it was a boy. When we were at the hospital, it was very interesting because the OBGYN was running late, and there was a nurse that was going to deliver, and he was like, get out of the way, I'm going to deliver this baby. So we're like, what's up with this? And it was a boy. And you could hear the echoing down the hallways of the hospital. It's a boy, it's a boy, it's a boy, it's a boy. And so, of course, everybody says, well, you had all those kids because you wanted to have a boy. It's like, yeah, okay, I have 10 kids because I wanted number 10 to be a boy. Well, number 11 was a girl, and number 12 was a boy. And and my 2 sons are John and James, who are the sons of thunder, if you know the scriptural reference, which then, I guess, makes me thunder. So that's kind of appropriate, because I spent, before being a lawyer, I spent 13 years on active duty in the Marine Corps. And it's an honor and privilege to serve your country. It really is. And I grew up in a Marine family. My dad was in the Marines. He fought in the Korean War. My older brother was a sergeant in the infantry in the Marines. I was a major. I was an infantry officer when I got out. And my youngest brother was a captain in the Marine Corps. So we had 4 boys, 3 in the Marines, and my dad. So you can see the impact. He passed away when I was 14. So I was pretty young when my dad died, and he obviously had an impact on his 4 sons, 3 following in his footsteps in the Marine Corps. We grew up in a small 3-bedroom home in Massachusetts, and in the hallway at the end, he always hung his dress blue jacket, and the boys would put on that jacket and walk around the house with pride, so it's no big surprise. So you think about that. I grew up in a family of 4 boys, 3 of us Marines, and my first 9 kids were girls. I didn't know what I was doing. And so one of my friends said to me, you're paying for sins you're not even aware of. And the law school, becoming a lawyer was kind of an odd thing. It was never on my radar. It was just really the Holy Spirit saying, "Look, this is what you need to do." And so I went to law school later in life. I went to Notre Dame Law School. Yeah, go Irish. It was interesting. We had I had 3 kids when I started law school, 5 when I finished law school, and the 2 girls that were born at Notre Dame ended up marrying Notre Dame graduates of all things. So God has a sense of humor. But I'm not a big, even though I'm a lawyer, I'm not a fan of lawyers, and so I usually say I'm not a lawyer, but I'm a Marine with a law degree. And so that's the way I approach things, as you'll see as I continue on. So I'm the co-founder and senior counsel of the American Freedom Law Center. We're a nonprofit public interest law firm. I started the law firm up with David Yerushalmi. He's an Orthodox Jew from New York. So I'm the Catholic guy here from Michigan. So we like to describe ourselves as the nation's first truly authentic Judeo-Christian law firm. So I think we can fit to that. And when I was looking for some scriptural inspiration for our law firm, I came across Isaiah 40:31. Right? They that hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar as with eagle's wings. And it seemed just so perfect, right? Because it's from the Old Testament, so a nod to my Jewish colleague. It's Isaiah. If you think about the prophets who prophesied the coming of Jesus, Isaiah was probably one of the strongest of all. And then you had the eagle, right? The eagle is the symbol of America. So I shared that with my colleague, and his response was, "Well, let me check the Hebrew." And so he went, read the Hebrew, said, "Yep, good. We got a good translation." So there we go. So that's our scriptural inspiration for the law firm. And it's a constant reminder that all that we have, including our precious freedoms, come from our Creator. So we must always, as our national motto proclaims, place our trust in God. And we live in a great country. We really do, and it's worth fighting for. As a Marine officer, I took an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And that's why when I was thinking about why I became a lawyer, I was an infantry officer. I was less concerned about North Korea and the Soviet Union than I was about what was happening in the courtrooms in the United States. What had wreaked more devastation in terms of our culture and the attack on our freedoms and religious liberty than in the courtrooms. And so I decided to go to law school so I could basically fight in the courtrooms, and that's what I do. Our system, is it perfect? No. No human system of justice, no human system of government will ever be perfect, because it's a human system and we're flawed by the fall. But I firmly believe that our founders, they were inspired by the Holy Spirit when they created our nation, when our nation was founded. It was founded upon a declaration, right, that we hold certain truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, right, and we're endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights, right, and first and foremost is what? The right to life, right? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It is self-evident that all human life is precious. It's endowed by our Creator. Properly understood, and I don't know if we teach civics anymore to students. We certainly should teach it to some adults. Properly understood, our rights don't come from government, right? It's not government that confer the rights upon us. The Bill of Rights isn't the government saying, "Hey, citizens, these are the rights that you have." No, the genius of our founding fathers, and again, the inspiration of the Holy Spirit, is we understand that there are certain inalienable rights that come from God. And the Bill of Rights isn't a conferring of those rights on us. It's a break on the power of government to interfere with those rights. Our Constitution does 2 principal things. It protects liberty and it prevents tyranny. And the right to life is the most fundamental right. Why? Because death forecloses all rights. And ironically, that is almost a direct quote from a liberal pro-abortion justice. He made this undeniable observation: the right to life is the most fundamental right because death forecloses all rights, in a death penalty case. Right? It's amazing how the left hates the death penalty, but they somehow love abortion. They can't see the disconnect with all that. If you have a functioning conscience, right, it's not possible to look at the development of a baby in utero or look at that newborn child and not see how precious and how beautiful life is. It's self-evident whether you're religious or not. But the reality is there's evil in the world. There's people always ask me, how how do you rationalize this decision or that decision in the court, Roe v. Wade and the likes? Sometimes you just can't, right? The real battle here is a battle with Satan. I mean, that's the reality. What we're battling here it's a spiritual battle. That's why it's so important to be grounded and rooted in our faith when we're doing this fight. And I swear, if I ever, Satan is real, and I think one of the biggest successes he's had is to convince people that he doesn't exist. And if I had to prove that Satan existed in a court of law, what I would use as Exhibit A is the abortion industry. The abortion industry preys on people. They prey on people who are often in a crisis situation, facing, coercion and pressure to engage in objective evil, and the abortion industry does that for a profit. And so it's so critically important, and it really is. It's a Christian way to reach out to help these people in crisis, in particular these often abused and lonely women who see abortion as their only option, to literally touch them, to love them, to give them hope. That is precisely what Crossroads does. And you saw that in the videos. And that's just a sampling of, I'm sure, the numerous testimonies that could be said here tonight. Crossroads is a light for people that find themselves in utter darkness. Think of the hopelessness you must be feeling to believe as a mom that killing your unborn child is the only way out. I mean, just think about that. How heartbreaking the place that you must be, that's where you think your hope is to pursue an abortion. I had the privilege of visiting Crossroads and meeting their staff and seeing with my eyes all that they do for women and the babies. And last year, they apparently gave out 70,000 diapers and wipes. I mean, that's more than I've ever used or my grandkids will use in an entire lifetime. They provide services to, roughly, I think it was 400 people a month, hundreds of ultrasounds, hundreds of prenatal care visits. And that's important. There's not many crisis pregnancy centers that do that prenatal care. And you heard in the videos how important that prenatal care is. They are so unique in that respect. And they continue to help and stay with these moms and their baby for up to 2 years later, and oftentimes much, much longer. They have an excellent medical staff. They're on the cutting edge of abortion pill reversal procedures. This is exceedingly important. It's a medical protocol that's designed to reverse the killing effects of mifepristone, which is the abortion pill. And I believe even nationally, using the abortion pill is the number one way that abortions are performed this day. So having the ability to do that, the APR, and they do it right there at Crossroads. And I think I was talking to Dr. Stark, and I hope I don't get this incorrect, but I think she said that even just past year they saved 3 babies that way. I mean, it's amazing. The government wants, that's definitely. And the abortion pill is so dangerous, and obviously it kills the baby, so it's fatal for the child, but it's so dangerous for the mom. And the abortion industry is working, overtime to remove all meaningful safety protocols and regulations put in place to protect the woman. It's absolutely diabolical. It's diabolical. And you heard Crossroads provides all this care and much more at no charge. It's truly remarkable. You are all here because you believe in the work that Crossroads does, and rightfully so. And I can tell you I'm here because I believe in the importance of the work they do as well. And I didn't want to do any of this for compensation. As I said, I'm exercising my right to give a free speech. But being part of this important work is compensation enough. To be here to speak to you, to try to encourage you, to fight for life with every fiber you have, but to also support Crossroads. Support Crossroads with the treasure that you have. I often hear people, they see the work I do, and, I have some pretty crazy lawsuits, been doing this for 25 years. And they're like, they feel frustrated. They feel like, there's nothing I can do. What can I do? I don't have a law degree. I got a busy work schedule. I've got a busy family schedule. But we all have a role to play in building the kingdom of God here on earth. Your role just might happen to be a support role. But that's so critically important. So critically important. The simple truth is, Crossroads couldn't do what they do without the support from people like you. right? You're the one that's going to be providing the hope to these moms that are coming into Crossroads, who are in that dark space and looking for some light to shine for them. So I'll give you a good suggestion tonight as to how you can make a difference. How you can make a difference in this fight for life. You can make a difference with your treasure. And I guarantee you, your money will be put to good use. Crossroads is a great steward of the gifts they receive because they understand what these gifts are. They're a blessing. They're an absolute blessing, a blessing that can be used to help others. So please, please be generous tonight. As you know, I'm a lawyer, or as I said, a Marine with a law degree. For good or ill, the law is often regarded as a moral compass, right? If it's legal, then it must be moral. At least that's one way of justifying something that's objectively evil, and certainly was the case with abortion. For many, the Supreme Court of the United States is kind of like a secular magisterium, right? They're the ones pronouncing on high what is moral and what is immoral on a secular level. Where we justified abortion that way since that fateful decision on January 22nd, 1973, a day to me that will live in infamy. And I speak, of course, of Roe versus Wade. And despite its reversal, we are certainly still dealing with its deadly consequences. I've been litigating pro-life cases now for over 25 years. Recently, I defended Father Fidelis. He's a Franciscan friar of the Renewal, the Gray Monks from New York. His name is Christopher Mozinski. He goes by Father Fidelis. In a civil lawsuit under the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act that was brought by Attorney General Merrick Garland and the Biden-Harris administration in the Northern District of Ohio. Father Fidelis was also a target of the criminal enforcement of the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act, or FACE, and he was one of the 21 pro-lifers that was pardoned by President Trump. Boy, what a difference this administration makes, man. It's unbelievable. Kind of wearing my Trump tie tonight. And I got to tell you, when I do oral arguments in front of the courts, I typically don't wear this because I think it's going to trigger them. So, but it's okay wearing it tonight because it's triggering all you in a good way. And true to his words, the weaponization of the Department of Justice against pro-lifers has ended. And President Trump directed the dismissal of all the civil claims in that case against all the pro-lifers. It was Father Fidelis, Monica Miller, Citizens Pro-Life Society, probably people that you know, and he directed them to be dismissed. Well, I represented Father Fidelis in that case, and true to form in the Marine fashion, you know, I'm always attack. I wasn't just going to go lightly. I filed counterclaims against Merrick Garland in the Department of Justice for selectively enforcing the law and targeting pro-lifers. Well, the Department of Justice formally changed their policy so that they're only going to employ FACE if it's actually a violent, a use of violence. In this case was in the Northern District of Ohio. It was basically a local trespass. We agreed to dismiss those claims because President Trump's DOJ agreed to pay our attorney's fees. So, enact a little bit of revenge against Merrick Garland on his way out the door. Yeah, and when you think about this lawsuit, this thing was totally politically driven. They did 2 rescues and 2 abortion centers in Northern District of Ohio. They basically went into the waiting room and kneeled and prayed. I mean, there was no force, obstruction, or threat of force, which is what it's required under FACE. Yet they still brought the civil lawsuit. They waited 3 years to bring it. The incident occurred in 2021. Statute of limitations is 3 years. They did it right under the 3-year statute of limitations, brought this lawsuit in 2024. Why? What was happening in 2024? Yeah, an election, right? So they want to show their base. Look, we're hard, against all these pro-lifers. We're supporting abortion. So this was a absolutely politically driven lawsuit, and the Trump Department of Justice came in and just said, nope, dismiss, and we got rid of the case. So elections have consequences for certain. And the government is largely hostile to the pro-life position. Certainly that was the case on the Biden, Harris, and the Merrick Garland Department of Justice. Thank God for President Trump and his victory. It was really morning in America. I got to tell you, for the type of work that I do and seeing everything, the way the Department of Justice was so weaponized, I mean, there were many nights and I'm thinking somebody's going to knock on my door and it's not going to be, friendly. because I've got plenty of enemies in Washington, D.C. And with him winning the office, it's like, okay, I can shut the alarm off at night. It's just, but we still have enemies here in the state, right, for certain. And that brings me to Proposal 3, which no doubt is of great interest to many of the people in this room. As was mentioned, I filed a federal lawsuit challenging Prop 3 here in Michigan, and we're challenging this diabolical amendment to our state constitution on federal constitutional grounds. Federal law and not state law is the supreme law of the land, right? We know that. On November 8th of 2022, the Michigan voters passed Proposal 3 by a simple majority. Close to 57% favored it versus 43% who opposed. And by the way, Proposal 3 passed by a smaller majority than the Michigan Marriage Amendment did, which passed with nearly 59% in favor, which, as you know, was eventually struck down on federal constitutional grounds by the U.S. Supreme Court in Obergefell versus Hodges. So I don't want to hear from the left, and this is the governor's talking point, that we are somehow, by filing this federal lawsuit, undermining the will of the people. Well, they apparently didn't care so much about the will of the people when it was the marriage amendment, right, which again passed by a larger percentage than Prop 3. We have 16 courageous plaintiffs who stepped up and were willing to put their names on this very important lawsuit. And as noted, and I'm happy to say here, that Crossroads is one of them. Yeah. And I want to make this as important notes. My firm, the American Freedom Law Center, we're a nonprofit public interest law firm. We're representing all of the plaintiffs, including Crossroads, pro bono. So none of the proceeds here, that the donations are coming in tonight or any are going towards legal fees. I just want everybody to be aware of that. The money raised here is going directly to Crossroads Ministry. And when I was looking for a crisis pregnancy center to be part of the lawsuit, because it was important, other plaintiffs include Michigan Right to Life, some of the state senators, state representatives, parents, moms. Crossroads immediately, where do I sign? Right, where do I sign? They're willing to, to step up and fight this battle for life, right? They're doing it every day in their clinic, and they're willing to also, press the issue in the court of law. What most people don't probably realize is that Prop 3 media campaign, which was, just so full of lies, and you'll see him momentarily, was overwhelmingly funded by out-of-state funds. The campaign, what was their slogan? Restore Roe. Does no such thing. Does no such thing. The primary political action committee that supported the passage of Proposal 3 was called Reproductive Freedom for All. They contributed $48 million. $48 million to get Prop 3 passed. At least $34 million of that 48 came from out-of-state funds. Right, out-of-state funds, they wanted to influence the election here in Michigan in our public policy on abortion, $34 million. In comparison, the primary political action committee that opposed Proposal 3, Citizens to Protect Michigan Women and Children, contributed $21 million, less than half, $21 million. Of that 21 million, less than 300,000 came from out of state. So where do you think the heart of this state is? Is it, it's certainly not the heart of the donors from New York and California who are funding this campaign overwhelmingly. But one of the things that struck me when I look at those numbers, it's like, why is it that the pro-abortion side always seems to have and willing to contribute so much more money than the pro-life side? Why is that? Is their cause more just than ours? Of course not. But we're going to change that tonight, right? You're going to show us that our pro-life supporters are willing to put their money where their mouth is, because it takes money. That's the reality. It takes money to do these things that Crossroads is doing. Make no mistake, Proposal 3 is a Trojan horse for so much of the evils that the left is trying to push. Certainly abortion is on the top of the list. Proposal 3 resulted in, and some of you may or may not know this, in adding Section 28 to Article 1 of the Michigan Constitution. And I just want to cover a few things that what this now constitutional amendment says. Every individual has a fundamental right to reproductive freedom. Every individual. Includes minors, includes everyone, every individual. And this entails the right to make and effectuate decisions about all matters relating to pregnancy. All matters, including but not limited to, and list things like contraception, sterilization. Sterilization. These are your transgender policies right there. Abortion care. They call it abortion care. The state shall not discriminate in the protection or enforcement of this fundamental right. That's Section 2. That means the state has a fundamental obligation to enforce this. Section 3 says the state shall not penalize, prosecute, or otherwise take adverse action against an individual based on their actual, potential, perceived, or alleged pregnancy outcomes. I'm not even sure what that means. What is a perceived pregnancy outcome? It says, nor shall the state penalize, prosecute, or otherwise take adverse action against someone for aiding or assisting a pregnant individual, not a mother, in exercising their, not she or her, right to reproductive freedom with their, again, using their pronouns for voluntary consent. Think about that immunity provision. You literally, under that provision, a woman could consent to her boyfriend doing a coat hanger abortion on the table, and he would be totally immunized from any penalties for doing so. You don't think there's going to be any coercion there between the boyfriend and the girl? It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. On the heels of the passage of Prop 3, the Democrats, who controlled at the time the Michigan legislature, the governor's office, and certainly the Supreme Court of Michigan, passed the Reproductive Health Act, which removed, as a matter of legislation, many of the common sense restrictions on abortion. They were emboldened and protected by Prop 3. Here are some of the things that were included in terms of what was removed from the law. The ban on partial birth abortion, abortion reporting, regulations on the disposal of fetal remains, abortion complication reporting, clinic licensing. They repealed the law that prevented school personnel from referring a student for an abortion or assisting a student with obtaining abortion. Certainly they're undermining parental rights. And as a result of Section 28, the Michigan legislature is powerless to repeal the Reproductive Health Act. But it's interesting, even with the legislation and all the power they had in Lansing, they still didn't have the political capital to do everything that they wanted to do through the legislation. So what's happened? Now you have these abortion centers that are filing lawsuits under Prop 3. And what are they challenging? They're challenging laws like informed consent laws, laws that require protocols to ensure that the abortion is not coerced. They're challenging laws that restrict the performance of an abortion to a licensed doctor so that nurses can do them. And quite frankly, under Prop 3, those things are going to be gone. So in a flash, Michigan, which was really one of the strongest pro-life states, Michigan Right to Life did a fantastic job through all these years. In a flash, by a simple majority, Michigan became California, became New York, or worse. Thus, the absolute need and urgency of having pregnancy centers like Crossroads. It cannot be overstated. You're going to see a proliferation of abortion like you saw with the marijuana. The left knows the effectiveness of Crossroads. Right? And on October 23rd of 2023, the Michigan Attorney General, Dana Nessel, one of the defendants in this case, we sued Dana Nessel, we sued Gretchen Whitmer, and we also sued Benson, the Secretary of State. I got to admit, when I file these lawsuits, it's rather cathartic. It really is. It feels good to sue them. I got to admit, it's something I kind of take a little bit of joy in when I hit file and sue these people. Well, she, and along with other pro-abortion attorney generals, signed an open letter falsely accusing pregnancy centers of spreading, quote, misinformation and harm. In this letter, she says she opposes efforts by these pregnancy centers to mislead consumers and delay or impede access to the full spectrum of reproductive health care, including abortion, and that she'll take numerous actions aiming to mitigate the harmful effects of crisis pregnancy center misinformation and delays. Nestle obviously opposes pro-life centers like Crossroads because they undermine the evil work of abortion centers. They undermine their profits. They undermine their bottom line. And by the way, profits that go to her campaign, there's no doubt about it. So as a direct result of Prop 3, Nestle and others consider crisis pregnancy centers, such as Crossroads, to be engaging in disinformation and thus consumer fraud. And why is that important? Because the Department of the Attorney General operates a consumer protection team to fight so-called consumer fraud. So these threats by Prop 3 are real in so many different ways. But I'm convinced, and I've seen this time and time again in the 25 years that I've been litigating, that by filing this lawsuit against them, we've forestalled that attack. There's no question in my mind. It happens all the time. We don't win every lawsuit we file. And I tell people, if somebody says they win every lawsuit they file, then they're not doing anything to move the ball, right? So the hard cases are the ones that we really have to fight. But by taking action, like we did here, we often delay, if not stop altogether, threatened actions because they know that if they take those actions, we're going to immediately turn to the court where we have the lawsuit filed, right? You punch a bully in the face, you may not knock him out, but you certainly make him think twice about messing with you. And so at the end of the day, our lawsuit has accomplished that because they haven't come close to doing what they've threatened to do. And I tend to follow the sage advice of that famous legal philosopher, Wayne Gretzky. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Right, so we had to take a shot. We have to take a shot to knock down this property. If they can get rid of the marriage amendment, right, and the marriage amendment didn't infringe upon any fundamental right, it was on rational basis, the lowest level. And oh, by the way, it's a rational basis to say marriage should be between a man and a woman because, oh, by the way, they reproduce and they have children. A man and a man can't do it, and a woman can't do it. That by any man's measure, and the Sixth Circuit made that point. They were reversed by the Supreme Court. That's rational basis. The fundamental rights that we're asserting are just that, fundamental. The government must have a higher level of scrutiny to overcome that, whether it be the intermediate or strict scrutiny, which is the highest level of scrutiny. As I previously mentioned, the reversal of Roe was done by Dobbs, and that was a game changer. But to quote Dobbs, and this is a really critical point, he says, quote, Roe was egregiously wrong from the start. Its reasoning was exceptionally weak, and the decision has had damaging consequences. This last assertion is an understatement, right? Roe created a cultural acceptance of abortion that must be reversed if we are ever to rid our society of the evil of abortion in any meaningful way. And I'm convinced that these damaging consequences that they talked about, we see it in this transgendered craziness that's happening out there. These damaging consequences have affected our judiciary. Right? We know, certainly for the left, the litmus test of whether you should sit on the bench isn't whether you're the best jurist or the smartest one in the room. It's what's your position on Roe versus Wade. Right? Some of their justice nominations can't tell you what a woman is. And she's a woman. And she was selected because she was the first black woman. I mean, I'm kind of confused, right? Why are you confused? I'm confused why you're confused about all this. And you look at what happened with Judge Bork, Justice Kavanaugh, And certainly Justice Thomas, what they went through in their hearings was all about Roe. Roe has corrupted us to its core. So hopefully we're on a change of that. And as I noted, for good or ill, the law tends to be a moral compass for those who don't have faith. So I want to turn now to Prop 3. As I mentioned, Prop 3 resulted in an amendment to the Michigan State Constitution. At no time in our nation's history has there been this super right, immune from all legislative action, I'll explain why that is, has ever been created by a simple majority. Let's make a side note here. We don't have a democracy. Sorry. We have a constitutional republic. Yeah. And why is that? Because another genius of our founding fathers is if you have just a majority, you can have a tyranny of the majority. It's a reason why we have the Electoral College. Right? That's Constitution 101. So every time I hear the left talk about the threats of democracy, my head's going to explode. Right? And they want to get rid of the Electoral College because somehow it's a threat to democracy. And after this last election, they want to get rid of the popular vote too, apparently. So that's the problem with the way state constitutions like Michigan's, it could be amended by a simple majority. Right? Unlike the U.S. Constitution, again, the genius of our founding fathers, they put in place very strict measures on how we can modify the Constitution. And here we just did it by a simple majority. Just run through briefly just some of the claims that we have. First, we allege that Prop 3 violates the Equal Protection Clause. Right? It causes great harm to women. Oh, by the way, only women can become pregnant. Right? By removing from them legal protections that they would otherwise have. Waiting period laws prescribing coerced abortions, reporting requirements, laws requiring abortions be performed by licensed physicians. In essence, these regulations that were designed to protect women, it removed those protections just for women. Second, it violates parental rights. You have abortion now without parental consent, don't even need judicial overpass. Reporting requirements to protect children from predators. And quite frankly, statutory rape laws can be challenged under this. Right? How do you have a right to reproductive freedom if you don't reproduce? Right? And it applies to every individual. Certainly the transgender policy, the agenda is protected by this. Third, free exercise, right? If you're a doctor, you work in the medical facilities or in the medical profession, and you work for a state hospital or for the government, you're going to be subject to these provisions. Fourth, and this is important, we say, it deprives the unborn of due process. Deprives them of their right to life without due process. Right? Let's push back on what the fundamental holding of whether or not is an unborn afforded protections under the U.S. Constitution. And so we're going to assert that here. In fact, we have some preborn babies that were named as plaintiffs in the lawsuit as baby does. And fifth, it created this unprecedented super right to reproductive freedom. Our Constitution guarantees, under the Guarantee Clause, a Republican form of government in each state. So when you can modify the Constitution in this way, that eliminates an entire branch of government, the legislative branch, which it does here, because what it does is, even though the state might have a compelling interest to overcome any of these fundamental rights, it's always subject to the independent, autonomous decision maker of the person who wants to abort the child. So even though it says, these are the compelling interests, and the state can regulate abortion if it has a compelling interest that's narrowly tailored, but we threw in this little caveat that swallows the whole rule. So essentially, legislature, you don't even bother anymore because you have no authority in this area. We filed a lawsuit in the U.S. District Court for the Western District of Michigan. As typical, the opponents, the defendants, filed motions to dismiss on standing and failure to state a claim. Pretty standard fare. They've been pending before the judge now it'll be a year this April. So hopefully we'll get argument on these pretty soon. Justice is not swift, obviously. And so hopefully, like I said, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So we took that shot. And now, as I mentioned a couple of times, for good or ill, the law is often a moral compass for individuals. And while I'm a lawyer and I firmly believe that the lawsuits like the one we have challenging Prop 3 are important and necessary, the fact remains that we will not truly end abortion until we change the hearts and minds of individuals, right? Yeah, no doubt. Changing the mind of a judge is one thing, but lasting change will only come from the work of places like Crossroads. Right? Roe didn't stop the pro-life movement from seeking to protect life, and Dobbs hasn't stopped the abortion industry from continuing to destroy it. If we can convince people of the evil of abortion, demonstrate what it is, a violent act that results in the death of an innocent human life, and most importantly, provide care for those who are in a crisis pregnancy, convincing them by our charity and our love to keep the child, then and only then will we end abortion. And then it won't matter what the law says. Right? It won't matter because we're going to change the hearts and minds. So if you are committed to ending abortion, to caring for women in crisis pregnancies, to caring for the precious unborn life they are carrying, then please support Crossroads. Right? I can't urge you enough to support this pro-life ministry. In front of you on all these tables, you have a white envelope. And I'd ask you if somebody kind of be the captain of the table or the leader of the table. We're going to kind of do a Marine Corps thing here. Bring out the white table. That means bring out the white envelope off the table. Everybody should have a pen. In that folder is a form, a donation form, right? So, do we have any other Marines out here? You got any Marines in the boot camp? All right, in your right hand, hold up a pen. In the left hand, hold up the donation form. All right, on three, everybody's going to donate. I'm not kidding, I'm serious. We're going to do that. When you are filling it out, right, what I want you to think, when you're thinking about, what is the amount that I can afford? We'll put it this way. What is the value of every one of these precious lives that are being saved by Crossroads? Right? What is that value? Think about that when you're writing that check. There's also, and you see the form up here, there's a QR code. So for those of you over 30, turn to somebody who's under 30 and they can explain to you what that does. Right? Use your phone, you go on the QR code, it'll pull up a link. You can use your credit card and you can donate right away on that. When you're trying to decide how much to donate, think about the crises that these young women are facing. That aborting their child is what they consider to be their only hope. Just think about that. They're wrong. You are their hope. Your support to Crossroads is their hope. Please be generous. God, no doubt, will reward you. He'll reward you tenfold of what you're willing to contribute tonight. He'll reward you for your charity and your generosity. The most vulnerable in our society will be thankful for your generosity and your charity. So please, seriously, write the biggest check that you can. Make it hurt a bit. Right? Think about the widow who gave up the widow's pence. Right? What did Christ say? She didn't take from her surplus. Right? Go beyond your surplus. Help Crossroads. Help these women. Save these babies. Are we pro-life or are we not pro-life? Crossroads, the moms and the babies they help, I know they thank you in advance for your generosity. Also consider being a regular giver. Right? So for them to know, how much might be coming in each month is so helpful for them when they're trying to determine their budget and make, funding decisions, whether they need to shut down on a certain day of the week or they can go all 5 or they can go, 6 days a week. Be very, very generous because they're very generous. And you heard that through the testimonies today. So I want to thank all of you for your generosity. I want to thank all of you for your attention. And may God bless you and have a great evening.